Hello, it's Boiling Point Pub here. It's Tuesday night, and this is hopefully just going to be a quick little video chat as I paint one or two of my Walking Dead type figures. I do apologise if the lighting isn't great here. Or my, yeah, I'm not sure that's working terribly well. Okay. This is a very Heath Robinson setup that I've got here. I've no idea how the pros go about filming these things, but this is basically my phone leant against a couple of boxes pointing across my painting table, in my little bunker at home. I'm going to see how it goes. This video may never see the light of day, or it may do, I don't know, but I'm going to be painting Walking Dead. So there's two survivors. No idea what these are called actually, these two. This guy and this guy. And we have a walker. Three more walkers. Three more walkers. And a survivor. And two more walkers. So let's see how we get on. I've not actually played the Walking Dead game yet, but what I've seen of it from videos online, it looks rather splendid. Keith from my club bought into the Kickstarter. I suppose that must be 18 months ago now. And got the whole lot, although as is usual with us gamers, it's yet to see the light of day. I think he did manage to paint up a couple of figures. I guess that's the trouble with Kickstarter, having partaken in a couple myself, one of which was this Dreadpool Extreme. If I was to open that box, you would see that everything is in the same condition as when it first arrived through the post. Sorry about that, I was just checking that I'm actually recording, because otherwise, rather embarrassingly, I would be talking to myself. So yeah, Kickstarters are great, and Mantic Games, who I'm on a bit of a kick at the moment. I'm turning into a bit of a Mantic fanboy. As anybody who's been involved in the tabletop miniatures hobby for any length of time will know that Mantic use Kickstarter rather a lot for most of their new releases. You can see Dungeon Saga here and Extreme. I also got into the Mars Attacks Kickstarter, which I've only just gotten around to painting some years after. There's one of the little marshes, and there's another one. Interestingly, if we look at these side by side with the Walking Dead figures, we can see there's a bit of a size discrepancy there, but hey ho, they're not meant to be played in the same game, so that's not a problem. But yes, I have bought into Mantic Kickstarters, and Mantic are well known for using the Kickstarter model, business model. But the one big problem is you will get all excited for what the Kickstarter offers, especially with all the add-on pledges and the stretch goals. and end up with an absolute barrel load of figures for not very much, usually around about 50% of what you would be able to buy it at retail. Spend the money, you know, when the Kickstarter funds, the money leaves your account, so usually around about £100 in general for the typical pledge. And you're all excited wanting to play the game that you've just spent £100 on, and typically getting about £200 worth of miniatures and figures and kit and what have you. And then there's a bit of a wait of around 12 months or so until the pledge arrives. So that is the problem, that enthusiasm can wane, because if anything, us wargamers are fickle characters. Oh, excuse me. Fickle characters, because we like the new shiny and we move on to it very quickly. As soon as something new comes along, we buy into it, and you don't get that instant gratification. That say if you go to a wargame show and buy into something there, and my mate Ada's well known for his ability to come away from a wargame show with an entire game almost ready to go, just needing paint, etc. But he'll go to these shows, see a project, buy the figures, get the rules, and he's almost got an instant game. Yes, sorry, I just got distracted then. Yes, they can go to one of these shows and come away with figures and rules that are a complete game, or that is what he's done in the past, and he just needs to paint the figures, and he's away, where you get that instant gratification, that instant sort of result. Whereas with Kickstarter, there's that 12-month lag, or sometimes it's quicker than that, but typically you can expect 9 to 12 months before delivery, if it delivers on time. Obviously sometimes these Kickstarters can run late, and there have been one or two horror stories about Kickstarters running years late. Fortunately, the Mantic Kickstarters that I've been involved with, which was the Dreadball Extreme and Mars Attacks, they pretty much arrived on time. However, in both instances, the interest had sort of waned a little bit, well, a lot, to the point where in both cases neither Kickstarters have seen me make any use whatsoever any of the figures contained therein. So I'm guessing I spent £100 on each one, and yes, I got a shed load of figures, £200 worth of figures, or there or thereabouts, but they've sat doing nothing, sat idle. Sat idle on the shelf or in the loft or in the garage, awaiting their moment in the spotlight. And fortunately that moment's now arrived, because I'm back onto this Mantic kick where I'm just wanting to do everything. I want to play just about every game that they produce, and I've pretty much started to get figures for just about every game they produce. So I've got a lot of Dreadball from the original game, 7 or 8 teams from the original game, plus the 3, 4, 5 teams I think it might be in the Extreme Kickstarter, all of which are cross-compatible with each other, and usable in the main game as it is in the Dreadball Extreme game, which is the underground sort of Fight Club variant of Dreadball. And as I mentioned previously, the Mars Attacks stuff is now, or certainly the base box, the contents of the base box have now been painted up with the survivors and the Martian invaders, and the characters. They're all painted up and ready to go. A little bit undecided on the scenery I'm going to use for that, because Mantic do this sort of red brick ruined town stuff. I'll get an example for you. This is a typical example. Designed to stand up. There you go. Put Rick Grimes there, who's not long been painted up. So yeah, I've got a tables full of that. To populate a table. I don't know what I think of it, whether I need to paint it or I'm just going to leave it in the sort of bare plastic, or what I'm going to do with it. I'm not quite sure. I did buy some MDF ruins from Wargames tournaments. That must be a couple of years ago at least, that were designed for 40k, but I've never actually done anything with that either. So and I can't imagine Mars Attacks being the sort of game I'm going to be playing week after week. It's going to be the occasional game, I would have thought. So I may not spend too much effort on that. The rules are essentially the Dread Zone rules, but in a 2D plane as opposed to 3D. So there's no cubes. It's purely squares that you're playing with there. I'm sorry you can't actually see what I'm painting here. I think the camera should be coming over my shoulder a bit more, but I haven't got the facilities to set that up at the moment, so I'm just going to have to, from time to time, just show you what it is that I'm doing. I'm just putting some light blue jeans on this walker. Yeah, what I've done here is this survivor, and I'm using the colour schemes off the Mantic website, because I'm rubbish at picking schemes. So this survivor I painted with a sky blue hoodie, sleeveless hoodie. So while I've got the colour out, I'm going to give this survivor sky blue jeans. I do apologise about the quality of this. If I continue with this channel, which I really hope to, because there's some great channels out there for hobby. In fact, I find myself watching YouTube channels on the TV in the kitchen more often than I'm watching regular content TV, to be honest. It's the revolution in how we consume our audio visual entertainment has been fantastic, with catch-up TV and YouTube and Netflix and Amazon and all these other services that really mean that the traditional terrestrial channels plus Sky are really going to struggle to vie for what time I have to watch and consume that media, because to be honest, I would rather be watching YouTube, self-made YouTube content on my hobbies, of which wargaming is the principal one, than I would watching some reality TV or soap or some other TV, I suppose. But yeah, I do hope that I can keep this channel going. inspired very much by Aaron from Throat Saw, Andy from Weight of Fire, and Andy from Andy 2D6. They've really given me a kick of motivation that has been lacking somewhat. I'm a bit of a wargame butterfly, and friends from my local club at the Stoke Wargames Club will know that I do flit from project to project very quickly. I can get a project onto the table very quickly, that's in using the painting style that you can see I'm doing now. Oops, sorry about that. Which is basically a base coat and wash, as it will be for these walkers, albeit the survivors do tend to get a little bit more detail added on. So I think this guy's called Liam. I spent a bit more time on him, and Carl, he's had a bit more time spent on him. I have no idea if you can see what that is, but the lighting in here isn't great. In fact, let me turn the other light on. I don't know if that's going to make any difference whatsoever. Probably just make it all very yellow. Yeah, it's given me this real hobby kick to get some of this stuff done. I've even painted dwarfs for a Kings of War, small Kings of War army. I've got Mantic Undead that I have used in the past for Warhammer Fantasy, and in fact Age of Sigmar, but will use also for Kings of War, and I do have a orc army from Mantic for Kings of War, and recently just picked up some goblins to go with those. So I've got a lot on the go at the moment. But anyway, back to the inspiration. Yes, so Aaron at Throat Saw, plus Andrew Sharp at Weight of Fire, and Andy from 2D6. Their video content is absolutely excellent around Mantic. Other bits and pieces as well. I know that Throat Saw does Drop Zone Commander. I've seen Gaslands played by the people at Weight of Fire, and Andy 2D6 does an excellent video on general hobby bits and pieces around Age of Sigmar. I think there's some 40k there too, so it's not just Mantic, but it's principally the Mantic stuff that I'm interested in just at this moment in time. Anyhow, I'm sorry to ramble on. This is just going to be a rambling video as I discuss the various bits of the hobby, and it's the first one I've ever done, so do apologise if I dry up somewhat. So I think this lady here, although she isn't the prettiest girl on the block, is called Sandra. She's one of the 6 survivors that you get in the All Out War base set, which I picked up from Troll Trader, who are just incredible with the prices that they charge for the Mantic stuff, particularly if you see them at a show. I'm pretty sure the Kings of War, not Kings of War, the Walking Dead All Out War box set was 50% off, as was Star Saga, which is another game that I'm desperate to play. I have the base set. I didn't jump in on the Kickstarter on either of those games, but at the UK Games Expo, which I will put up a video about later in the week, or maybe in fact you'll see that before you see this one, depends on how things go, but UK Games Expo that I went to on Sunday, Troll Trade has a huge stand presence, trade presence there, huge stand displaying off various games, and they got a massive Mantic section with huge discounts. So as I say, the Walking Dead box set was 50% off, Star Saga 50% off, the boosters for The Walking Dead, which they seem to have most of season 1, wave 1 and wave 2 were about £5 cheaper. So typically from Mantic, those boosters, which basically include 1 or 2 characters plus a walker and then the relevant character card and some equipment cards, they're typically £14.99, £15 from Mantic. Obviously online retailers will sell that at 10-15% off, but Troll Traders selling it selling for £9, which is incredible discount. So I did pick up a few of those. In fact, all but Shane I got, which are the Wave 1 boosters that I was missing. I had to get in from Mantic themselves, which is why I know they cost £15. But I picked up all the other boosters, including some extra dice, including a really nice template set, plus the TT Combat MDF buildings specifically for sort of Holocaust, post-apocalyptic world type games like zombie games. So yeah, that was great, picking them up so cheaply. It is times like this where I get sort of feverishly, try and say that right, feverishly interested in these games, that I regret not diving into the Kickstarter, but I just know what that cycle would have led to. It would have, similar to what Keith at the club has done, it basically sits in a box until inspiration strikes, but the savings are just incredible, as I've already said. So crikey. Going back to the original point then, so the Kickstarters, there's a lot of angst about them, particularly where people buy into a Kickstarter and then have this feeling that they should be the first people to get those models before retail. Now, typically there'll be a retailer's pledge, as well as a sort of personal pledge that the regular customers can get into. And the retailer's pledge will give masses of stuff to a retailer to start stocking the game. And as Mantic have said many times in the past, they are all about supporting the friendly local gaming stores, because they want to build that community post Kickstarter. And without that, then really there's no sort of business model in place, because they can't rely on producing these games just as Kickstarter items for them then to fade away to nothing with no support. But people do get upset when retailers receive their pledge and then start selling the things at retail, selling the models at retail, before some of the backers have received their own copy. So people will be able to purchase the box game or the expansions before somebody has put down £100 or whatever it is to support the Kickstarter. I'm a bit meh on that, I have to say. It wouldn't bother me because, as I've said, you end up with roughly 50% off retail value. So even though a retailer may be stocking the contents of that Kickstarter on the shelves to the general public before a backer receives it, which I think is probably rare, but I know it has happened. That punter is going into the friendly local gaming store to buy the game or the boosters or the figures or whatever, are paying probably twice as much as the Kickstarter backer has. So yeah, it's a pre-order system. Yeah, it's a way to get bucket loads of figures and gaming equipment pretty cheap, but I don't think people can complain too much beyond that, so long as they get the figures roughly when they've been promised them. They're getting a pretty good deal. I do apologise, I'm just working on my Kindle behind scenes here for images on the search engine to give me inspiration for the clothing of these zombies, because I knew, in fact, which one is it? This girl here. She looks like she's a waitress or something. Sorry, this girl here looks like she's a waitress or something. She's got some sort of apron affair going on here, which is a grubby off-white, and underneath it's sort of a pinky dress. Now, I do own a game colour pink. My paints are from 101 different places. I love this one. That is a very old hexagonal Games Workshop Citadel colour shadow grey. It's a bit of a collector's item, that is. Probably fetch, I don't know, 10, 20 pence on eBay maybe. This has got to be 20 years old at least, and look at that. Still a third or a quarter of a pot in there, and still usable, which you can't say about all of Citadel colour in the new ranges, which I'm sure anybody who might be watching this will know can tend to dry up rather quickly. So I do normally use water, or sometimes use water to thin these paints down, but I also use this, which is, that's probably showing the wrong way around, but Pledge Multi-Surface Wax, which is an excellent medium to dilute your paints with. As opposed to water, it just makes them flow that much better. So I'm going to give this girl a waitress pink. I'm not going to be too careful when I'm painting this on. I never am, because the apron will be painted. Will be painted afterwards. I'm going to run this for an hour, I think. No other reason than I want a cup of tea before I go to bed. It's 28 minutes past 9 now, so yeah, I'll probably run this through till 10 o'clock and then go get a cup of tea and turn in for the night. So yeah, The Walking Dead. Not something that I've followed religiously. However, as in religiously when each, as in the comic book, or the TV series. Don't get me wrong, I've seen episodes of the TV series, seen seasons 1 and 2, but not followed it religiously. However, I am on a bit of a binge watch at the moment, so I am maybe halfway through season 3 now. So Rick and the gang have made their first assault on Woodbury to rescue Glenn and Maggie and then Shane. and they've just got out of Woodbury with Shane and Merle, and that's where I'm up to. So obviously I'm now well acquainted with the governor, played by the excellent David Morrissey, but beyond that I'm not entirely sure. I certainly know bits of the story going forward that I'm assuming the governor will meet some sticky end at some point, but I also know that several characters will be biting the dust. It's one of those programs, a little bit like Game of Thrones, where you see things happen, you think, oh my goodness, did that just happen? As who you thought was a major character bites the dust, like when Dale got bitten and bit the dust. And I know there's divergence away from, sorry if you couldn't see any of that then, what I was doing. I know there's divergence away from the comics, in that, well, probably everybody's favourite character, Shane, is a construct of the TV show, doesn't appear in the comics, and therefore not in the game actually, which is disappointing. And I may rectify that if I get into this game. I may, because there are third-party companies that make suitable figures for Zombie Apocalypse that are based on trademarked figures. Sorry, let's just pick out this guy. That are based on trademarked figures. So there is a company called Studio Miniatures, I believe they're called, who make a figure that is eminently suitable as Daryl. This is another paint company, P3, Privateer Press. Privateer Press Paints, so P3, 3Ps. If I get into the game, I may well end up doing my own. In fact, am I going to use that? Am I going to use that? Am I going to use that? Yeah, let's use that. Yeah, I may do my own, create my own version of Daryl, because he is pretty cool. So yeah, so characters die where they didn't in the comic. So they die in the TV series where they didn't in the comic, or I think it's Dale, isn't it? That, yeah, Dale in the comic ends up with his leg bitten, and in the TV show, I'm aware that that part is played by, or that happens to Herschel from the farm, from the Green Farm. I think Shane lasts longer. Yeah, in fact, Shane doesn't reach the Green family farm, does he? In the comic, whereas in the TV show, he certainly does. Makes it halfway through, I would say, halfway through season 2, before Carl shoots him dead. Sorry if there's any spoilers here, guys, but it has been out for some time. I've only just really got bitten by the bug. So yeah, I wasn't a big follower of the programme or the comics, but I've now read the first volume of the comic, which was great. Read it on my Kindle. That was an interesting experience, reading a comic on a Kindle. They are set up for reading on the Kindle, so you basically just touch the whichever panel that you're reading and it sort of enlarges, and you can just flick from panel to panel that way. I found it quite a decent experience, actually. It's certainly not put me off doing it. But the cost of the comic has, for the moment, it's £8, I think, for volume 2, which I will get, but I've certainly, sorry, I'm just going to move the camera down slightly, I'm not entirely sure. I'm getting an awful lot of this painting on the actual screen, so you're probably hearing my voice. I'm just seeing figures moving backwards and forwards, giving the sky red top. So yeah, I've forgotten what I was saying now. Yeah, the cost, yeah. So having been to Games Expo and spent more than I thought I would spend, and also having picked up the Dungeon Saga Kickstarter off a Facebook sales group, which I've got an incredible deal on. That's just amazing. If you've seen that first video where I play the introductory scenario with Ava, my little girl, that game is going to see some table time. It is great. So here we go. I do whiz through these figures when you're busy doing other things. I've got this girl. What's she wearing on the Mantic site? Just bear with me. Bear with. Bear with. I don't seem to see a picture of this figure. It's this one in particular I'm looking at. I must say I'm not the most inspired person when it comes to choosing colour schemes, and typically what will happen is I will paint armies up for whatever system I'm playing at the time, with this great intention of thinking, yeah, I'm going to come up with this fantastic colour scheme. And then what generally happens is I look at the official colour scheme, or the colour scheme by the company, so Games Workshop or Mantic or whatever, and end up somewhat disappointed with my own version of it. And regret it, because I tend to fall in love with the figures because of the official paint scheme. The paint scheme does a lot, doesn't it, for the actual aesthetic of a model. I mean, the sculpting is clearly, the sculptor's talent clearly comes through and is fantastic and all that, but it's the pro paint job that makes figures come alive and catches the eye, and clearly that's a deliberate business decision to make that happen. But it's that colour scheme that attracts me to the figure probably more than the sculpt. So I did make a conscious decision some time ago to, in general, follow the colour scheme from the official photographs of whatever figures it is that I'm painting. I mean, I do paint a lot of historical figures, so clearly that's not an issue. You just follow my phone decided it was nearly out of battery. So yes, so with historical figures, clearly you follow whatever reference material that you're using to choose the colours to paint the figures. So most recently I've painted some American War of Independence 15mm figures by Peter Pig, so I'll just follow the reference material that's available for that. But for the fantasy settings, for AOS or Lord of the Rings, or now these Mantic games, as if by magic a cup of tea has just appeared there. So yeah, so I'll follow the paint schemes of the professional painters from the website or box art in the main. occasionally I will I'll diverge, but I have to say my colour choice generally won't trump that of the professionals, so I do apologise. Having said that, my Kings of War dwarfs that I showed you, yeah, I've actually made up my own, which was the Shadow Grey and the P3 red there, over the top of a brown undercoat and an Agrax Earth wash, which is talent in a pot, as we all know. So I think this girl might be a nurse or something. Looks like she might have scrubs on. So where were we? Hopefully I'm going to be able to splice these two videos together now. Yeah, I nearly made the cardinal error there. Paintbrush into tea, or paintbrush into water pot. Let's move the water pot a bit closer to save any disaster occurring. Okay, so still some of these survivors who need some bits doing on them, so let's see. In fact, shall we use the Shadow Grey? Why not? I'm feeling devil may care. If you notice on the Mantic website for The Walking Dead, there's a heck of a lot of zombies wearing jeans, and I'm not averse to the use of denim in miniature wargaming, but I'm creating a little bit more sartorial elegance in my walkers, or biters, as I think the citizens of Woodbury refer to these fellows. I did wonder when I first thought about purchasing I really need to work on the angle of this camera, I think, for future videos. I did think when I purchased, or thought about purchasing into The Walking Dead, that, well, first of all, I wasn't going to bother because I've got the first 3 box sets from Zombicide, which is an excellent board game, which has given us some hours of entertainment at the Stoke Club. And in fact, I would imagine certainly draws some inspiration from The Walking Dead in the fact that one of the characters, at least, is a Rick Grind rip-off. I forget what his name is, but he's a sheriff with a shotgun, wandering around a town that's been taken over by zombies. I did wonder, having 3 box sets of Zombicide, whether the zombies from that would be usable in the Walking Dead miniature game. Now, I'm pretty sure they would if you're not too bothered about the size difference, but there is a considerable size difference. They're quite slender models, the Zombicide figures, whereas the Mantic Walking Dead, and this was probably a business decision, I can't imagine it wasn't, are rather stout fellows. Oh, Gordon Bennett. I do apologise, this is really unprofessional. Hello. However, I'm beginning to realise that doesn't matter too much, because it's not like Zombicide. Walking Dead isn't like Zombicide in that you can have hordes and hordes of zombies in Zombicide just bearing down on the survivors. The zombies in the Walking Dead miniature game tend to be more sorry, that's ridiculous. Tend to be more, I do apologise, tend to be more movable scenery, I guess. I've heard them referred to as in they get in the way and are a threatening presence to the survivors, and it's more like a gang-on-gang game where you have two bands of survivors trying to recover stores and loot, and fighting each other for those stores and loot that they find around the table. And that you can certainly use zombies tactically within the game to bait them towards your enemy. I've seen that in some of the online battle reports that I've watched lately. So, very different to the Zombicide game, which is a co-op game, first of all, whereas I think Walking Dead can be co-op, but it's generally considered to be a gang-on-gang style game. In the Zombicide game, you're basically trying to get off the table, move across the board, which usually represents either a town block or a shopping mall or a prison. Again, very much along the theme of any zombie film ever made, I guess. But the zombies will eventually catch up, outnumber, and eat you if you hang around in that game. There's certainly a sense of impending doom as the threat tracker. I'm not quite sure that's what it's called actually, but the further you move through the game and start to kill the zombies, the more zombies turn up and the worse they get, or the more fierce they get in the game. So it is, you're very much against the clock in that game. Do your best to get out there as quickly as possible, get out of town, get out of Dodge as quickly as possible. So let's use that colour here, shall we? Yeah. I don't know if I've actually explained my painting method, but yeah, it's just this simple base coat. I'll try to be as tidy as possible. I don't normally use black undercoat actually, that's an interesting one. For some reason I thought I'll use black undercoat again here. Years ago, I certainly was a black undercoat merchant, I think it would be called, where I followed the famed Wargames founder or Kevin Dallimore style of painting, where it was black undercoat, a base coat, and then two highlights on top. I painted like that for years until I came across Army Painter and their dip, which I used then exclusively for 3, 4, 5 years, painting thousands and thousands of 15mm Peter Pig figures, which is my other wargaming passion, I guess. So yeah, my painting style changed. So I started to buy the coloured spray paints from Army Painter and used them. This is rubbish, isn't it, for you to see what I'm actually doing? I do apologise. I will improve in the future, I promise. So, for example, painting American Civil War Union figures, I would use a dark blue spray paint, add the various bits of detail that were needed, and then use the dark tone oil oily dip, the actual dip, which I would paint on actually rather than dip figures into it, but comes in a tin and looks like wood stain, as opposed to the ink wash that army painter do, that does give basically the same effect. But I particularly like the effect that that gave. So she is sort of a grey colour. Let's go with that. Yeah, so I moved away from the black undercoat to that for many years, and then starting to paint 25, 28 mil heroic scale, whatever you want to call it. Went to more using inks, either the GW Citadel ink range such as Agrax Earthshade and Reichland Fleshshade, or the Army Painter inks such as Strong Tone, Dark Tone, etc, etc. So I can churn out figures remarkably quickly. I've been painting for 30 odd years, I suppose, and I'm nowhere near competent or skilled in this art, but I guess over 30 years you learn the tips and tricks of the trade, and you learn the shortcuts, and you know how to control a brush probably to get paint onto areas quickly without having to do a lot of rework, and in fact getting to the stage where you don't worry about the rework, because really you don't often, I don't worry about what a figure looks like from, I doubt that on focus, from this sort of range. It's more from this sort of range, and really you can't tell whether there's been a slight error or slip of the brush in those circumstances. So I'm getting towards the end of my ability to sit and paint. Not that I'm ill or unable to sit particular long periods, but I've got a cup of tea waiting, and I probably ought to go and just say hello to Mrs. Point, who's sitting downstairs. Bob Point isn't my real name, it's my super secret identity that I use online. My work don't take particularly kindly to copious amounts of social media content, and I don't particularly want them to be worrying too much about what I am posting online. Nothing illegal, clearly, but it's just my personal choice that I choose to keep my work life and my hobby life separate. Although I'm ashamed of what I do. Most people know that I actually do this. In fact, I've got a colleague at work who's very much into, in fact more than one colleague at work who's very much into the hobby too. So I did see something in the press the other day saying that the geek culture seems to be becoming far more acceptable. The geek chic thing that's going on. It's no longer the preserve the nerd. It's becoming far more acceptable. Okay, that's the waitress. I think what I'll do is just get the last bit of clothing on one of these walkers done, and then we'll leave it there for the night. I'll just have the hair to do on the walkers, and then the detailing on the survivors. So I've got this grandad type figure here. He's gonna have a white shirt, I think, with his cosy cardigan on. So let's just get that collar done. Yeah, I'm not sure I'll use black again. It's a bit too much like hard work to get the coverage, and to be honest, using inks and washes the way I do, it's sort of the washes sort of negate the need to have the black undercoat. Black undercoat's there, or traditionally it was there, to provide some shadow. So there was a style of painting called black lining in the 60s and 70s when this hobby first really took hold, with the miniature historical wargaming, and people would paint on a white undercoat generally using enamels or oil paint, God forbid, block in the principal colours and then go over it with maybe a very fine artist's or craft pen, black pen, and paint in the shadows. And then the Kevin Dallimore thing came along, which, as I mentioned, is this base colour and two highlights school of painting over a black undercoat, basically creating that same effect where you've got the delineation between, I doubt you're going to be able to see it, but I'll try. So between the hand and the sleeve here, I've left a little bit of black there, and that's meant to be the sort of shadow. But I do find with the inks, the ink would run into that. If I'd painted the sleeve, if I painted the sleeve white and the hand the zombie fleshy colour there, and then washed it, the wash would settle into that join between the hand and the sleeve, so it sort of negates the need really to do the black undercoat. And you certainly get brighter, stronger colours over the white undercoat or some other light colour, so light grey or light brown, than you do over the black. But I've committed myself with these first guys. I don't think this subsequent figures that I paint for this collection will be black undercoat, to be honest. I don't think it'll make too much difference. I don't think there'll be a huge problem. Painting one with a black undercoat and one with a white undercoat, I don't think I'll notice too much unless it's pointed out to you. But did I bite? I did. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be a major issue. Do I want the light grey or the dark grey? Light grey or dark grey? Light grey. Let's go light grey. I don't think it'll make a huge difference unless it's pointed out. Yeah, so these Army Painter paints are great. This is ash grey, but they take a considerable amount of shaking. Yeah, a lot of shaking going on. A whole lot of shaking going on. So there we go. Right, let's do this dude. This dreadlocked zombie is looking rather mean, other than for the fact he's only got one arm, which is no doubt been pulled off and used to hit somebody over the head with. As is wont to happen in the zombie apocalypse. So yeah, I've already painted a few of the walkers up. He's quite nice. He's got a rather gory belly going on there. There's a girl here with fetching miniskirt and blood splatter, de rigueur for this season's zombie. And this one here, she's looking, well, she's had better days, hasn't she? Let's face it. So I've whizzed through these. I think there's 6 survivors and 12 zombies in the base set. So I think I was saying earlier, I'm not quite sure I'll need any extra zombies. You get at least 1 zombie in each expansion box. And just looking over the other side, I think there's 5 or 6 expansion boxes there, so that's at least 5 or 6 more zombies. And I've got the Roma expansion, which gives you another 6 zombies, so I think I'm probably up to close on 20. I'm not sure I'll need any more than that, or I won't need to go anywhere else other than the Mantic zombies, because every booster set comes with another zombie, so you don't need too many more on top of that. Okay, so he's done. This unfortunate fellow. He's already got a grey t-shirt, so I'm going to have to get him a shirt. And I'm thinking, what colour shirt? I was giving this goblin green one, which is a new green from... No, I'm not sure about that. I haven't seen it. Come on, inspiration, hit me. Hit me, inspiration. There we go again. Apologies for that. That's a bit too much of a close-up of Bob and his wherewithals. There we go. Yeah, well, let's go the dark green route. No, change my mind again. We will go this green route. So here we go. It's a nice green. A nice green shirt for this boy. I think again, oh dear. I wonder if there's an award for the least professional video published onto YouTube, because this is appalling. I'm not sure I would sit through this if I was a consumer of YouTube videos. So I wonder what to call these videos. Sit and chat, I think it's probably been done to death. There's quite a few sit and chat type painting videos out there. Shoot the breeze, shoot the crap. I don't know. I'd really like this channel to become something that I can enjoy as almost an extension of my own hobby, and not so thousands of people watch it. That's not going to happen, but just almost as my own diary to record my hobby activity. I don't play half as much as I'd like to. I don't get to paint half as much as I'd like to be honest. This is a bit of a rarity that I've managed to spend the time here talking to you, to be honest. But I hope it does, and I shall endeavour to improve the quality of the paint and the chat. Not the most riveting, I appreciate. Okay, I think I'm gonna... what should I do? No, let's just do this guy's cardigan. Looks like he's wearing a sleeveless cardigan. It looks like he must have been... he was probably a vet of World War II or something like that. He's an old timer. Get off my lawn. Pesky kids. Let's just do this quickly. It's a little bit thin, this scree paint is, but not to worry, because zombies will look washed out. Yes, these zombies are literally, I'm going to be finishing the clothing. I shall do the little bit of hair, maybe a little bit trim around some of the clothes here or there, but essentially just a little bit of tidying up on them, and then they'll be coated liberally in Agrax Earthshade. A little bit of gore added onto them, the splatter, and they'll be done, the survivors. So here we go. 3 survivors there. Two survivors plus, I think she's called Sandra, this girl in the end. She's wearing some sort of headscarf. 3 more walkers there. Looking alright actually. Okay, not too unhappy with them. Nursey, and then the other 2 survivors. No idea who these 2 guys are. I'll find out shortly, no doubt. They will get a little bit extra work. Okay, that's going to be it for tonight. I've no idea if anybody's going to watch this. Maybe 1 or 2 people, I guess, because I will post a link up on the various Facebook groups and places of interest. This is the Bob Point Plays channel. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I will endeavour to get out a video at least once a week, maybe more. Next one will be a bit of a examination of the haul and loot I obtained at UK Games Expo. So stay safe, look after each other, see you soon, thank you.